Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going beyond the hype, the shiny pictures of autonomous vehicles. We're actually digging into the real-world experience and, crucially, the economics of it all. And we're doing that through the eyes of, well, an economist.
That's right. It's a different lens, isn't it? We're looking at a detailed account from Professor Oscar Benavides Paz. He's a professor of economics, University of Nariño. And he took this ride back in September 2025 in a Waymo AV, level 4, right through San Francisco.
Okay, so this wasn't just about checking out the tech.
Not at all. He was treating it almost like a field experiment, a kind of moving cost-benefit analysis in real time.
Got it. So for everyone listening, our mission here is to unpack that ride. Not just, wow, a car drove itself, but really looking at the hard data. Things like urban efficiency, social equity, which often gets missed, and what this means for future research. He's actually prepping an academic paper from this, right?
Exactly. For the ALET 2026 conference. So this is serious analysis applied to a real-world trip and the road itself. A real test. 15 kilometers through San Francisco.
Which is not easy driving.
Definitely not. We're talking steep hills, really dense traffic, even fog rolled in.
Ah.
He went from the Mission District out towards the Golden Gate. I mean, if an AV can handle that kind of variability, well, that says something significant from an economic standpoint. It shows a certain robustness.
Okay, let's get into the tech first. The brain of this thing. It wasn't just any car. It was a Jaguar I-Pace, but loaded with sensors.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely loaded. Think of it less like a car and more like a mobile sensing unit. We're talking 29 sensors, 13 cameras, 4 LiDAR units, 6 radars, even microphones. It gives the vehicle this complete 360-degree view of its surroundings, something that, frankly, surpasses what any human driver can perceive, certainly in terms of speed and scope.
That perception capability, that's really the foundation for everything else, the safety, the efficiency.
It has to be.
But for this to work economically, for mass adoption, the user experience needs to be smooth, especially for a first-timer like the professor was. How did that part go?
It sounds like it was surprisingly simple. He just used a standard app, like you would for any rideshare. The car arrived precisely on time. And the price was clear up front, estimated $18, but the final cost was actually a bit lower, $16.50.
$16.50 for 15 kilometers. That sounds pretty competitive for San Francisco.
It is for SF.
But, and this seems key for his economic work, how does that cost translate outside of a place like San Francisco? Is $16.50 still competitive in, say, Nariño, where he's from?
That's a huge question, and you're right, it's central to his analysis.
Yeah.
That $16.50 reflects operation in a very specific, highly mapped, high-resource environment. Transferring that cost model to places with, different income levels, different infrastructure, that's the major hurdle. He's very aware of that.
Okay. But the initial experience, the interface, it felt trustworthy?
Apparently so.
Yeah.
He even mentioned a welcoming voice in Spanish when he got in, which is a nice touch for user comfort.
And that comfort is important when you step inside and realize there's no steering wheel, no pedals.
Exactly. That's the visual cue for SAE Level 4 autonomy, right?
Yeah.
Just to clarify for listeners, Level 4 means the car handles all the driving under specific conditions. The human is just a passenger. So yeah, removing the wheel and pedals, leaving just emergency button, it really hammers home that the machine is fully in control.
Which takes us to the drive itself and some of the maybe unexpected benefits he observed, like safety in action.
Right. Let's talk about that Market Street incident he described. Market Street in SF can be chaotic.
Understatement.
Ha, yes. So the Waymo encounters this cyclist who suddenly weaves right into its path. Erratic, unpredictable. A human might slam the brakes, swerve, maybe panic a little.
And the Waymo?
He described it as a smooth yet surgical maneuver. It adjusted its speed and position just enough to avoid the cyclist cleanly. No jerky movements, didn't disrupt traffic around it. That's that 360-degree sensing translating into incredibly precise, non-reactive action.
Wow. And that kind of precision isn't just anecdotal, right? There's data supporting this. We looked into its studies show AVs cutting intersection risks in cities by something like 40%.
That's the figure, yeah, from Nature Communications. A 40% reduction is, well, it's transformative if it holds up at scale. Think about it. If you take out the variability of human reaction, human judgment, you could potentially redesign intersections, maybe need fewer safety buffers. It's a fundamental shift.
So that's the external safety benefit, but then there's this internal physiological finding that I found really fascinating. He tracked his heart rate?
Yes. This was maybe the most surprising bit. His heart rate actually dropped during the ride. significantly, from around 80 beats per minute down to 66.
Whoa, that's a big drop. 14 beats per minute just from being driven.
It is. And the analysis suggests it's down to removing the stress of actually driving. That constant scanning, anticipating, reacting, especially in heavy traffic. When you're just a passenger, truly passive, that low-level chronic stress disappears. Other studies link reducing that kind of stress to better health outcomes, less anxiety fine.
So it's almost like a hidden public health benefit. AVs could potentially improve commuter well-being just by letting them relax.
It's certainly a potential positive externality, yes. It reframes the whole idea of commuting from a chore to maybe usable downtime, or just less stressful time at least.
And this calm, calculated approach, it also showed up in how the car handled tricky terrain, right? Like Nob Hill or that crazy winding Lombard Street.
Absolutely. On Lombard Street, known for its tight curves and tourists, the car slowed way down, like 10 kilometers per hour. But it wasn't because it couldn't handle it. It was the algorithms predicting potential hazards, pedestrians, the tight turns. It was being extremely cautious, predictively so.
That predictive, smooth driving, it must save on wear and tear too, right? Beyond just fuel or energy.
Definitely. That's part of the economic calculation. Less sudden acceleration, less hard braking. It's optimized for efficiency. The analysis points to potential savings on maintenance and energy, maybe around 20% compared to your average human driver. That adds up over the life of a vehicle fleet.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. Connect these specific observations back to the bigger economic picture. The headline safety claim, which his trips seem to support, is an 85% lower accident rate for AVs in controlled city environments.
Right, that 85% figure is really the driving force behind billions in R&D, because the cost of accidents is just enormous. In the U.S. alone, we're talking something like $242 billion annually. Globally, it's estimated at 1.3% of the entire world's GDP.
Wow.
So if AVs can genuinely make a dent in that, the economic savings are astronomical. Not to mention the human cost, obviously.
And plus, this was an electric Jaguar, so zero local emissions. Another economic benefit, reducing those environmental externalities.
Correct. Which brings us back to Professor Benavides Paz's core interest, equity. How does this potentially revolutionary tech benefit everyone, not just those in wealthy cities? He uses the example of Nariño, his region in Colombia. Their transportation costs can eat up like 15% of a family's income. That's huge. So the promise of AVs, cheaper, safer, cleaner transport, is that they could help democratize mobility, make it more accessible.
If the barriers can be overcome. Because the trip wasn't flawless, there was that moment of hesitation.
Yes, the anomaly. That's the other side of the coin. On Van Ness Avenue, the Waymo hit unmapped road construction, something not in its digital blueprint. And for about 2 seconds, it just stopped. It hesitated, figuring out what to do before finding an alternate route.
2 seconds doesn't sound like much, but what does that hesitation signal to an economist looking at scalability?
It signals the Achilles heel, really. AVs excel in predictable environments they've perfectly mapped. But throw in an unexpected anomaly construction, a sudden detour, unusual weather, and their performance degrades. Or they simply stop. That increases operational risk and cost. And it's a massive problem for deploying this tech in places where infrastructure changes rapidly, or mapping isn't as detailed. Think about many parts of Latin America, for instance.
So that single incident highlights broader structural challenges. What were the main ones the professor's focusing on for his paper?
He synthesized them into sort of 3 key areas holding back global application. First, as we just discussed, the technical limits, especially perception in bad weather, fog, heavy rain. Studies show perception failures jump by about 15% in those conditions. That impacts reliability, which impacts trust and cost.
Okay, technical limits. What's next?
The ever-present issue of cybersecurity. These aren't just cars. They're networked computers on wheels, prime targets. We're seeing reports, like from NIST, showing a 30% rise in intrusion attempts just in 2025. Securing these fleets is a constant, expensive battle, adding to the service cost.
Makes sense. Tech limits, cybersecurity. And the third.
And the third, maybe the toughest, is regulation and ethics. We still haven't fully resolved those dilemmas. The classic trolley problem scenarios. How does the car decide who to prioritize in an unavoidable accident, pedestrian versus passenger? There's no global consensus.
Right, and layered on top of all that is the equity issue we touched on earlier.
Exactly, the equity gap. It's perhaps the biggest barrier to that democratized mobility dream. Look at San Francisco, the heartland of this tech. Even there, studies show only about 60% of low-income residents currently use services like Waymo. Why? Cost is one factor, but also digital access, the need for smartphones, reliable internet, and the massive cost of the high-def mapping and infrastructure needed. These barriers are just exponentially higher in places like Nariño.
So it sounds like the big takeaway is the technology itself is pretty impressive, potentially superior in many ways.
In controlled environments, yes. Safety, efficiency, even stress reduction.
But the current way it's being rolled out, the business models, they might actually widen the gap between the haves and have-nots.
That's precisely the economist's conclusion. The tech could be a tool for social inclusion. It has that potential. But only if we consciously design the business models, ride-hailing, public fleets, whatever, and the financing, maybe public-private partnerships. If we design them specifically to address those digital divides and economic disparities from the start. Otherwise, yeah, we risk creating even more inequality.
The tech works in the lab or in perfectly mapped cities. The real challenge is making it work for everyone, everywhere.
That's the crux of it, which leads perfectly into the final thought we wanted to leave with you, the listener. Professor Benavides Pass's next research step is modeling AV impacts in rural areas. Think about that context. Very different roads, maybe less reliable mapping, different connectivity, visibility issues. So, question for you is, given all these challenges we've discussed, what specific infrastructure changes or maybe regulatory approaches would you propose to actually make this technology viable and scalable outside of these controlled, high-resource urban testing grounds?
Something to think about. How do we take this out of the city and make it work for the rest of the world?